Captain David Miller stood at the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, his eyes fixed on the massive display screen. The ship, humanity's first and only Titan-class battleship, floated silently in Earth's orbit. At nearly 3 kilometers long, it represented everything humanity had achieved in the past 50 years of space development. "Sir, we're picking up multiple signals," Lieutenant Emma Roberts called out from her station. Her fingers flew across the holographic display as she analyzed the incoming data. "They're not like anything we've seen before." The bridge crew fell silent. After years of searching for alien life, first contact was happening, but not in the way anyone had expected. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a jellyfish. Its translucent body pulsed with different colors as it spoke, its words automatically translated by the ship's eye. "Primitive species of Earth," the alien began, its tone dripping with contempt. "We are the Galactic Concordat, a union of 15 advanced civilizations. Your rapid technological growth has been deemed a threat to galactic stability. Submit to immediate containment or face extinction." Miller's jaw tightened. He looked around at his crew. The best Earth had to offer. They had trained for first contact scenarios, but not like this. "Sir," Emma spoke up again, her voice excited. "I'm noticing something strange in their transmission patterns. The universal translator is picking up background chatter. They're afraid." "Afraid? Of us?" Miller asked, walking over to her station. Emma nodded, pointing to various data streams. "Look at these energy readings. Their ships are running at full power. Defensive systems, weapons, everything. They're not acting like a superior force. They're acting like they're facing a serious threat." Brian Foster, the chief engineer, joined them at the console. His usual easygoing smile was replaced with a serious frown. "Makes sense, Captain. Think about it. We went from basic spaceflight to building the Defiant in just 50 years. Most species probably take centuries to make that kind of progress." The alien transmission continued. "You have 1 Earth rotation to respond. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate force." Miller sat in his command chair, thinking. The Defiant was humanity's masterpiece, a ship built with technology that Earth's best minds had developed through sheer determination and creativity. Its dark matter drive was unlike anything ever theorized before. Its weapon systems combined the best of tried-and-true kinetic weapons with cutting-edge energy technology. "Lisa," Miller called to his communications officer, "can you clean up that background chatter?" Lisa Cooper adjusted her settings, and suddenly new voices filled the bridge. Alien voices speaking among themselves, not realizing their communications were leaking through. "Their weapon systems are completely different. How did they develop so fast? The containment must happen now, before they grow stronger." Miller stood up, his decision made. "Send this message to the Concordat. The people of Earth reject your demand for containment. We have no hostile intentions toward peaceful species, but we will defend ourselves if threatened." "Message sent, sir," Lisa confirmed. "They're responding. Multiple ships detected entering the solar system. They're coming through some kind of faster-than-light corridor." Emma's station lit up with warnings. "Detecting over 50 vessels, Captain. Energy signatures suggest they're warships. They're forming a blockade pattern beyond Mars' orbit." Miller nodded slowly. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them the Defiant is moving to intercept." He pressed a button on his chair, activating the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We've trained for this. Earth is counting on us." Battle stations. The massive battleship hummed to life as its crew rushed to their positions. In engineering, Brian Foster prepared the dark matter drive for its first real combat test. At tactical, John Parker ran final checks on the railgun arrays and missile systems. As the Defiant moved out of Earth's orbit, Miller watched the alien fleet on his display. They thought humans were primitive and dangerous. They wanted to contain Earth's growth, to stop humanity's rapid advancement. Instead, they had just guaranteed that humanity would fight back with everything they had. "Helm, set course for the alien fleet," Miller ordered. "Let's show them exactly why they're right to be afraid." The U.S. Defiant accelerated forward, its massive form cutting through space like a sword. Behind it, Earth shone blue and peaceful, unaware that its first and only battleship was about to prove why humanity deserved its place among the stars. The U.S. Defiant moved steadily through space, its massive hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Brian Foster wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the dark matter drive's readings. The experimental engine hummed with power, filling the chamber with a deep, steady vibration. "Chief," one of his engineers called out, "the drive's energy levels are climbing faster than our simulations predicted." Foster grinned. "That's because the aliens don't know what they're dealing with." He tapped his comm unit. "Bridge, this is engineering. The dark matter drive is performing better than expected. We can push it to 120% if needed." Up on the bridge, Captain Miller received the news with a slight smile. The Concordat's containment fleet had grown to over 70 ships now, forming a wall of alien technology between Mars and Jupiter. Their vessels glowed with strange energies, their designs unlike anything humans had seen before. Lisa Cooper's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. "Captain, I'm intercepting their fleet communications. They're not just planning to stop us." She paused, her face growing pale. "They're discussing plans for a permanent quarantine of Earth. They want to set up massive space stations around our solar system. They plan to keep us trapped here forever." "Not if we have anything to say about it," Miller replied firmly. He turned to his tactical officer. "John, what do we know about their weapons?" John Parker studied his displays intently. "Their energy readings are off the charts, sir. But here's the interesting part. They seem to be completely focused on energy-based weapons. No sign of physical projectile systems at all." "That's why they're afraid," Emma Roberts added from her station. "Our railguns and kinetic weapons might be primitive to them, but their shields might not be designed to stop physical objects moving at relativistic speeds." Miller nodded slowly. A plan was forming in his mind. "Rachel," he called to his navigation specialist, "plot us a course through the center of their formation. Not around, through." Rachel Adams' fingers flew across her console. "Course plotted, sir. But it's going to be tight. Their ships are packed close together." "That's exactly what we want," Miller said. He pressed his comm button. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to show the Concordat why humanity deserves its place among the stars. Prepare for combat." Throughout the massive ship, crews rushed to battle stations. In the weapon control centers, teams loaded the railgun magazines with tungsten rods. Point defense gunners powered up their systems, ready to protect the Defiant from enemy fire. The alien fleet noticed their approach. A transmission came through, translated by the ship's AI. "Earth vessel, this is your final warning. Return to your planet or be destroyed." Miller stood from his chair. "Send them our response, Lisa. 3 words. Come and try." The space between the ships lit up as the alien fleet opened fire. Beams of energy and colors humans had never seen before streaked toward the Defiant. But humanity's flagship was ready. Adaptive shields holding. Foster reported from engineering. "Their energy weapons are actually helping us calibrate our defenses better." Miller nodded. "All batteries, open fire. Show them what primitive weapons can do." The Defiant's response was devastating. Railguns along its hull roared to life, launching tungsten rods at speeds approaching 1% of light speed. The aliens, so dependent on their energy shields, had never prepared for such basic physics. The first volley tore through 3 ships like paper. "They're trying to regroup," Emma called out. "Their formation is breaking." "Right where we want them," Miller said calmly. "Rachel, take us in. Brian, give us everything the dark matter drive has." The Defiant surged forward, its revolutionary engine bending space around it. The massive ship moved with impossible grace for its size, threading through the gaps in the alien formation. Every shot from its primitive weapons found its mark, while the alien energy weapons splashed harmlessly against its constantly adapting shields. From the bridge, Miller watched as the mighty Concordat fleet scattered before them. Their perfect formation broke apart as ships tried to escape the devastating effectiveness of human engineering. What they had dismissed as primitive was proving to be their undoing. "Sir," Lisa reported, her voice filled with pride, "I'm picking up new transmissions. The other alien ships, they're calling us the breakers of barriers. They're actually running away." Miller allowed himself a small smile. This was just the beginning. The Concordat had fought to contain humanity, to lock them away in their own solar system. Instead, they had just given humanity its first step into the galaxy, and the U.S. Defiant was going to make sure it wasn't the last. The battle at the Kuiper Belt would later be known as the moment when the galaxy learned to fear human ingenuity. The U.S. Defiant floated at the edge of the solar system, facing a new wave of Concordat warships. This time, they had brought their heavy weapons. 300 ships, Emma Roberts announced from her station. Much bigger than the ones we faced before. John Parker studied his weapons display with growing excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. They've modified their shields, but they still don't understand what they're dealing with." Captain Miller walked to the tactical station. The screen showed the enemy fleet's new defense systems, layers of energy fields that would easily stop any known energy weapon. But humanity had never relied solely on energy weapons. "Their arrogance is their weakness," Miller said. "They think technology must follow their path. They can't imagine someone doing things differently." He turned to his crew. "Let's show them the human way." Rachel Adams, at navigation, had already plotted their course. "Sir, I found a way through their formation. They think they've trapped us, but they've left gaps. Gaps they don't think we can use." The enemy commander's image appeared on the main screen. The alien looked different from the others. Bigger, with more decorative patterns flowing through its transparent body. "Primitive humans," it said, "your luck ends here. Surrender your ship and accept containment. This is our final offer." Miller smiled. "Lisa, send them our standard response." Communications Officer Lisa Cooper grinned as she typed out the now famous message, "Come and try." The massive alien fleet opened fire. The space around the Defiant lit up with energy weapons more powerful than anything they'd seen before. But humanity's flagship was ready. "Shields adapting," Brian Foster reported from engineering. "The more they shoot, the stronger our defenses become. The dark matter drive is giving us more power than they can handle." Miller nodded. "John, time to test your new idea." Parker's hands flew across his console. The Defiant's railguns had been modified, loaded with a new type of ammunition. "Ready, sir." Tungsten cores wrapped in smart materials. They'll change shape after penetrating their first target. "Fire at will," Miller ordered. The Defiant's weapons roared to life. The new projectiles streaked across space, glowing red from acceleration. The alien ship's powerful shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. But this time, something new happened. As each projectile pierced through the first ship, it split into multiple pieces, each one curving to hit new targets. "Multiple hits confirmed," Parker shouted with joy. One shot, 3 ships down. The alien fleet's formation began to break. They had never seen weapons that could do this. Physical projectiles that could change direction after firing. "Sir," Emma called out, "I'm picking up panic in their communications. They're calling us. They're calling us demons. They can't understand how we're doing this." The Defiant moved through space like a dancer, its dark matter drive, letting it pull maneuvers that should have been impossible for a ship its size. Rachel's careful navigation took them through gaps the aliens thought were too small to use. "They're trying to surround us," Rachel reported, her fingers dancing across her controls. "Let them try," Miller replied. "Brian, show them what our drive can really do." The chief engineer's voice came back excited. With pleasure, sir. Initiating space fold. The defiance seemed to blur for a moment. The alien ships had formed a perfect sphere around them, ready to fire from all directions. But when they shot, the defiant wasn't there anymore. It had somehow moved without moving. Behind their command ship, Rachel announced with pride, "They'll never understand how we did that." The alien fleet fell into chaos. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to turn and fire at the Defiant's new position. But they were too slow, too predictable. "Their fancy technology means nothing," Miller said to his crew. "They forgot the basics. They forgot that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." The battle ended quickly after that. The alien fleet retreated in disorder, leaving behind dozens of destroyed ships as testament to humanity's primitive weapons. As the Defiance crew celebrated their victory, Lisa picked up new transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species were learning about what had happened. The news was spreading. Humanity wasn't just fighting back against the Concordat. They were winning. Miller looked at the stars ahead of them. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. Never underestimate humans. Sometimes, being primitive just means remembering what really works. Word of the U.S. Defiance victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Lisa Cooper worked at her communication station, sorting through hundreds of incoming messages from different alien species. Many weren't even in known languages yet. "Captain," she called to Miller, "you need to see this. We're getting calls for help from smaller alien worlds. They've been under Concordat control for centuries. They want Earth's protection." Miller stood behind her station, watching the messages flood in. Some included videos of Concordat ships attacking peaceful colonies. Others showed alien races being forced to hand over their technology and resources. "The Concordat isn't the peacekeeping force they claim to be," Emma Roberts said, looking up from her analysis station. "They're bullies. They've been keeping smaller species down for a long time." Mark Wilson, the tactical officer, had spent the last few days studying the debris from their battles. His findings were surprising. "Sir, look at this analysis. The Concordat ships all follow the same basic design. It's like they stopped inventing new things hundreds of years ago." "They got comfortable," Miller nodded. "They thought they knew everything worth knowing about space warfare. Then we showed up with our primitive ways." A new signal caught Lisa's attention. "Captain, incoming transmission from a species called the Viridians. They're offering to defect from the Concordat." The main screen lit up, showing a tall, plant-like alien. Its leaves rustled as it spoke. "Greetings, U.S. Defiant. We have watched your battles. You have done what we thought impossible. You have broken the Concordat's power. We wish to stand with Earth." This was big news. No species had ever left the Concordat before. Miller straightened his uniform. "We would be honored by your friendship," he replied carefully. "But why now?" The Viridian's colors shifted to a deep blue. "For too long, the Concordat has forced all species to follow their way of thinking. They call it unity, but it is really control. You humans, you think differently. You solve problems in ways we had forgotten were possible." More messages kept coming in. A dozen other species wanted to talk to Earth. Some offered technology, others wanted trade deals. A few even asked if Earth would teach them about primitive weapons that could defeat Concordat shields. "Sir," Brian Foster called from engineering, "I've been looking at some of the technical data these friendly aliens sent us. The Concordat has been holding back technological progress on purpose. They banned research into certain areas, like our dark matter drive, calling them too dangerous." Miller walked to the center of the bridge. "They're afraid of change," he said. "They built their power on having the most advanced technology, then forced everyone to stop advancing. But they never counted on a species like us." Emma's console beeped with new information. "Captain, our scans show the Concordat's propaganda is falling apart. Their own people are starting to question their leaders. Videos of our battles are being shared everywhere. even though it's forbidden. "Sir," Lisa called out suddenly. "Emergency signal from a colony world in the Orion sector. They're under attack by Concordat forces. The Concordat is punishing them for watching videos of our victories." Miller didn't hesitate. "Rachel, plot a course. John, ready weapons. The Defiant may have started as Earth's defender, but now we have a bigger job. We're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." The massive battleship turned gracefully in space, its dark matter drive hummed to life, ready to carry them to help those in need. The crew felt a new sense of purpose. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for every species that had been kept down by the Concordat's false peace. "Message from Earth Command, sir," Lisa said. "They're sending more ships. The Defiant was just the first. Humanity is officially taking a stand against the Concordat's oppression." Miller looked at his crew, humans who had trained to defend Earth, but were now becoming champions for freedom across the galaxy. The Concordat had tried to paint humanity as dangerous primitives. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, were the best. "Set course for the Orion colony," Miller ordered. "It's time to show the Concordat that humanity doesn't just fight for itself. We fight for what's right." The U.S. Defiant disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a changed galaxy. The message was spreading. Humanity had arrived, and they were not going to bow to anyone's rules about how things should be done. The Centauri crossroads buzzed with activity as hundreds of ships moved through the busy space lanes. The U.S. Defiant hung in space near the massive intersection of trade routes, watching as a Concordat battle fleet approached. This wasn't just any fleet. This was their elite force, led by the massive command ship Starbreaker. "They'd brought their best this time," Emma Roberts said, studying her screens. 500 ships, including their flagship. That's 1/3 of their total military force. Captain Miller stood at the center of his bridge, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on the main screen. "They're desperate. They know if they lose here, they lose everything." Security Chief Steve Martinez checked his combat gear one last time. His Marines had trained for this moment. "Captain, my boarding teams are ready. If we can get close enough to that command ship, we'll get you there," Miller promised. "Dr. Phillips, what have you learned from their tactical data?" Dr. Laura Phillips looked up from her station, where she had been studying stolen Concordat files. "Their command ship has a fatal flaw. They never expected anyone to get close enough to board them. Their internal defenses are weak." The enemy fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships glowed with energy as they powered up their weapons. The Starbreaker was enormous, 5 times the size of the Defiant. "Message from the enemy commander," Lisa Cooper announced. Her voice was steady despite the tension. "They're ordering all ships in the area to leave. They say this is our last chance to surrender." Miller smiled. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender whenever they're ready." The battle began with a flash of light that seemed to set space itself on fire. The Concordat fleet launched everything they had: beams, missiles, and energy weapons that could tear planets apart. But the Defiant was ready. Months of fighting had made her crew the best in known space. Rachel Adams's hands flew across her navigation controls, making the massive ship dance between enemy shots. John Parker's weapons found gaps in their shields that no one else could see. "Their formation has a weak spot," Emma called out. "They're so focused on looking strong, they've left their center exposed." Miller nodded. "Rachel, take us in. Brian, give us everything the dark matter drive has. Steve, get your Marines ready." The Defiant shot forward like a bullet. Enemy fire filled space around them, but couldn't touch them. Parker's railguns fired with perfect accuracy, clearing a path through the enemy fleet. "We're in position," Rachel shouted, "right under their flagship." "Now, Steve," Miller ordered. Security Chief Martinez and his Marine teams launched from the Defiant in special boarding pods. The massive Starbreaker never saw them coming. While their shields were focused on stopping energy weapons and large objects, the small pods slipped through easily. "We're in." Martinez's voice came through the comm. "Their internal security is a joke. They never thought anyone would dare board them." Dr. Phillips sent data to the boarding team's tablets. "Their command center is 3 levels up. Be careful. Their artificial gravity is stronger than ours." The battle outside continued to rage. The Defiant moved like a predator through the enemy fleet, its primitive weapons tearing through ships that cost more than entire human cities to build. "Sir," Lisa called out, "other ships are joining the fight. The species we helped, they're attacking the Concordat fleet from behind." Miller watched as dozens of ships from different alien races jumped into the battle. Species that had been oppressed by the Concordat for centuries were finally fighting back. Inside the Starbreaker, Martinez and his teams fought their way to the command center. The aliens were physically stronger, but humans had something they didn't: centuries of experience fighting in close quarters. "Command center secure," Martinez reported. "You won't believe this, Captain. Their leaders, they're running away. They abandoned their own crew." The news spread quickly through the enemy fleet. Their leaders had fled, leaving their ships to fight alone. One by one, Concordat ships began to surrender. "Get me a channel to all ships," Miller ordered. "To all Concordat forces, your leaders have abandoned you. Surrender now, and we guarantee fair treatment. This war can end today." The response was immediate. Across the battlefield, enemy ships powered down their weapons. The mighty Concordat fleet, the strongest military force in known space, was giving up. As Miller watched the surrendering ships, he thought about how far they'd come. The Concordat had called humans primitive. They had tried to lock Earth away, afraid of what humans might become. Instead, they had created exactly what they feared: a force that could break their power and free the galaxy. The Battle of Centauri Crossroads would be remembered as the day the Concordat's power was broken. But for the crew of the Defiant, it was just another example of humanity doing what it did best: finding a way to win, no matter the odds. The U.S. Defiant orbited a beautiful blue-green planet called Novaris, home to one of the first species to break away from the Concordat. First Officer Daniel Wright stood on the bridge, watching refugee ships arrive from all over the galaxy. Another group from the Meridian sector, Lisa Cooper, reported from her communications station. "They're saying 6 more Concordat worlds have declared independence in the last day alone." The Concordat was falling apart faster than anyone had expected. After their defeat at Centauri Crossroads, more and more species were standing up against their former rulers. "Incoming transmission from the Novaris Council," Lisa announced. "They're ready for the meeting." "Sir." Captain Miller nodded to Daniel Wright. "You're up, Dan. Show them what peaceful human diplomacy looks like." Wright led a team down to the planet's surface. The aliens of Novaris looked like tall, graceful deer with iridescent fur. They had been one of the first to see the truth in the Defiant's actions: that humanity wasn't just fighting for itself, but for everyone's freedom. "Welcome, friends from Earth," the Novaris leader said. "We have much to discuss. More worlds seek to join our alliance every day." In orbit, the Defiant's crew continued their work. Emma Roberts studied reports from across the galaxy. "Captain, look at this pattern. The Concordat's oldest member worlds are the ones most likely to rebel. They remember what freedom felt like." "Sir," John Parker called from Tactical. "Emergency signal from the Helios system. A Concordat loyalist fleet is attacking a colony that tried to declare independence." Miller didn't hesitate. "Rachel, plot a course. Lisa, send word to our allies. Brian, is the dark matter drive ready?" "Always ready, Captain," Foster replied from engineering. "Those Concordat loyalists won't know what hit them." The Defiant jumped into action, its revolutionary drive taking it across light years in minutes. When they arrived at Helios, they found a scene of chaos. 5 Concordat warships were firing on defenseless colony ships. "Get between them and those civilians," Miller ordered. John, target their weapons only. We want to show them we're better than their leaders. The Defiant moved into position, its shields easily absorbing the enemy fire. But instead of destroying the attacking ships, Parker's careful shots only disabled their weapons. "Sir," Lisa said excitedly, "I'm picking up communications from inside the Concordat ships. Their crews, they're arguing with their commanders. Some are refusing to fire on civilians." Miller smiled. This was what they had been waiting for. The Concordat's own people realizing the truth. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "This is Captain Miller of the U.S. Defiant. To all Concordat crew members, you've been lied to. Your leaders told you we were primitives who needed to be contained. Instead, we showed you a better way. A way where every species is free to grow and develop in their own way. The choice is yours now." The response was immediate. On 3 of the 5 Concordat ships, crews turned against their commanders. The other 2 ships fled, leaving their companions behind. Back on Novaris, Daniel Wright was building something new. Representatives from 20 former Concordat worlds sat around a table, discussing the future. The old Concordat forced everyone to follow their rules, their way of thinking. Wright told them, "We propose something different. An alliance where each species is free to develop in their own way, where we share knowledge instead of controlling it." The aliens were amazed by this idea. For centuries, they had been told there was only one right way to do things. Now humans were showing them another path. "Sir," Emma reported back on the Defiant, "you need to see these numbers. 80% of Concordat worlds have either declared independence or are in open rebellion. Their empire is collapsing." Miller watched the stars through the bridge window. "They thought containing us would keep their powers safe. Instead, we showed the galaxy that there's strength in thinking differently, in being primitive enough to try new things." Lisa's console lit up with new messages. "More ships arriving, sir. They're asking to join our alliance. The word is spreading. Earth doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to free it." The Defiant had started its journey as one ship defending Earth. Now it was becoming something more. A symbol of hope for every species that wanted to break free from the old ways. As Miller looked at the growing fleet of Allied ships around them, he knew the real battle was just beginning. Breaking the Concordat's power was one thing. Building something better in its place would be the true test of humanity's spirit. The U.S. Defiant hung in space above the Concordat's capital world, Primaris. The massive purple gas giant filled the view screen, its many moons hosting the last stronghold of what was once the galaxy's greatest power. "Their defense fleet is huge," Emma Roberts reported. "Over 1,000 ships, everything they have left." Captain Miller stood calmly on his bridge. Around the Defiant, hundreds of ships from the newly formed alliance took position. Former Concordat worlds, freed colonies, and 3 more ships from Earth that had joined them. "Message from the Concordat High Council," Lisa Cooper announced. "They're demanding we leave their space immediately. And they're calling us primitives again." The bridge crew actually laughed at this. After all they'd been through, after all they'd achieved, the Concordat's leaders were still stuck in their old ways of thinking. "Send them our response," Miller said. "But this time, make it different." Lisa nodded and transmitted. "This is Captain Miller of the U.S. Defiant. We offer you peace. Surrender your power, free your remaining worlds, and join the new alliance as equals. No one needs to die today." The response was predictable. The Concordat fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. But they were fighting an enemy that had long since learned all their tricks. "Rachel, take us in," Miller ordered. "Brian, show them what 6 months of upgrades have done to our dark matter drive." The Defiant moved like something from a dream. All the battles, all the encounters had taught them how to make their ship even better. Rachel Adams's hands danced across her controls as she wove between enemy ships that seemed to be standing still in comparison. "Their formations are sloppy," John Parker reported from Tactical. "They're afraid. They know they've already lost." The battle was like a dance they'd practiced 1,000 times. The Defiant's primitive weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling ships without destroying them. The Alliance fleet followed their lead, using techniques learned from humanity to break through the enemy's defenses. "Sir," Emma called out, "multiple ships are powering down. Their crews are surrendering." On Primaris's largest moon, in the grand halls of the Concordat High Council, the last leaders of the Old Order watched in horror as their fleet fell apart around them. "Security teams ready," Steve Martinez reported. "Permission to begin landing operations." Miller shook his head. "No need. Look." The main screen showed hundreds of ships landing on the moon, but they weren't military vessels. They were civilian ships from every species the Concordat had ever ruled. Former slaves, oppressed worlds, controlled colonies, all landing to confront their former masters. "They're walking right into the council chambers," Lisa reported, monitoring the surface communications. "The Concordat leaders, they're running away again." But this time, they had nowhere to go. Every exit was blocked by the very people they had kept down for so long. Daniel Wright spoke up from his diplomatic station. "Sir, representatives from every former Concordat world are requesting permission to form a new government. They want Earth to help lead it." Miller smiled and shook his head. "Tell them we'll help, but not lead. The galaxy needs something new, not just a different species in charge, but a whole new way of thinking." The next few hours were historic. The Concordat leaders were arrested by their own people. The old laws requiring all species to follow the same technological path were thrown out. The massive libraries of forbidden research were open to everyone. "Message from Earth Command," Lisa said. "They're asking for a status report." Miller looked around his bridge, at the humans who had started this journey as Earth's defenders and ended it as the galaxy's liberators. "Tell them mission accomplished. Tell them humanity just changed the galaxy." The Defiance crew watched as ships from hundreds of worlds celebrated around them. Their primitive ship, once seen as a threat to be contained, had become a symbol of hope and change. "What now, sir?" Rachel asked from her station. Miller looked at the stars, at a galaxy now open to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and the kind of progress the Concordat had feared for so long. "Now," he smiled, "now we explore. There's a whole galaxy out there, and for the first time in centuries, it's truly free. Humanity didn't just break the barriers around Earth. We broke every barrier that kept species from reaching their full potential." The U.S. Defiant turned gracefully in space, its mission transformed. They had started as warriors, become liberators, and now would be explorers. The ship that had burned through galactic defenses would now help build a galaxy where no defenses were needed, where every species was free to find its own path to the stars.